Well, hello everybody. My name is Miko Woodside and I'm an animator, and today I'm going to teach you how to draw Figaro. It's classic Monday of Disney Cats Week, and I'm excited to go teach you how to draw this little guy. Pinocchio is one of my favorite classic Disney movies. Last week we drew Jiminy Cricket, and this week it's fun to go back. So I'm going to start doing these warm-up circles up here in the top side of my page. I normally do that. I've already washed my hands. And you guys who've done this class before, I'm sure you came in prepared. You can use either hand sanitizer or soap and water. But our pencils are sitting in the drawer for a while, so we want to make sure that we have a clean start to our drawings. So I always do these warm-up circles just to get started for the day, and these are my kind of rough thought process circles that I just reserve this area to do some doodles, to try to figure out how to draw certain parts of the character. So it's a great way to sort of section off a piece of your paper to make sure that you can continue to learn. Probably won't be a perfect drawing by the end of it because we're learning how to draw him together. So this helps us to know that this isn't supposed to be a final thing. This is just in progress. Got a whole new batch of pencils. I have a lot of people asking me what kind of pencils I use. I'm gonna try these out. These are Faber-Castell, what is this? A Scarlet Red pencil. Polychromos is the brand. Let's see if that will focus. Anyway, it's a fun little soft pencil to mess around with, so I'm trying that today. And then my darker pencil is just going to be a black of the same brand. So we're just going to start darkening these things out. And what's nice about this way of drawing, if you haven't seen it before, is that we can sort of do really rough lines with one color and then go over with another darker color. And then those red lines you see kind of fade away and we focus on just these areas. And Figaro has a lot of shaded in areas on him. So this will give us kind of a place where we can go to even hide more red lines. So I'm going to try to save enough time to color him in today too. We're just going to draw his head. And when you do these circles, again, try to move your whole arm so that you're not sort of stunting the circles with little small ones. We try to fill the page as much as we can with the character, and we do that with big lines. So let me turn this down a bit. Okay, so let's just go ahead and get started. I'm gonna draw my circle right here. I'm gonna leave some room on the sides because he has these little fluffs and then these ears on the top. So I can actually go pretty big with it, and then I will probably regret this when we go into color it in. But the bigger I draw it, the easier it is for you to see it. And that's what this new camera setup is meant to do as well. Give you a cleaner view of the drawing so that you can actually see what we're working on kind of flat on. So just darkening the parts of the circle I want to keep. There you go. So I have this little tool that I like to use to show how I like to draw the character in perspective. It's a ping pong ball where I drew these lines to tell us the vertical and horizontal perspective. And so the reason for that, if you've seen people draw characters before and they do these lines like that, these aren't just arbitrary. This lets the artist know which way the character is facing early on without having to like start with the nose and then hope that the eyes are in the right spot. This just gives people a framework. So for Figaro today, we're just going to draw him straight on. So we're going to have a perfectly vertical and horizontal line. And let's go ahead and start those. This over here. Okay, so I'm going to put the vertical line right down the middle, and I move my whole arm kind of in quick strokes, and I do it softly so that I can eventually build on it and make sure that it's in the right spot. Sometimes they're, too far to the right or left, but again, with this method, you can kind of make some corrections and everything will be fine. So for the horizontal line, this is the middle. I'm going to go to about a quarter of the way up, so halfway between the middle and the bottom, and I'm going to draw a pretty long line because we're going to use this to let us know where the cheeks are. So if you've done these classes before, you might have felt the urge to throw away your drawing halfway through. I'm going to encourage you not to do that, because I feel like we learn a lot with our drawings as we finish them. And even the drawings that I'm working on, typically they look pretty weird halfway through and I want to throw them away. But if I stick it out, I'm usually pretty surprised with how it turned out. And I've heard that from a lot of people who have taken this class seriously, so I just want to encourage you guys to do that as well. So like always, we typically start with the nose, and the nose is a little kind of a rounded line on top and then a V on the bottom. It's like a little pie wedge. So I'm going to do that right above the center point and then connect right below it. Actually, I'm going to make mine a little bit bigger on top. There we go. Okay, so we have those lines worked out. I want to actually go straight to the smile. So he's got these like a little kitten cheeks down here. So if you want, we can draw little circles or ovals that go out to the side and kind of connect back up to the center here. I'm going to do the same on the side. I'm doing this really lightly because we're only going to outline part of it. I'm going to make sure that the cheeks are about the same size too on the left and the right. So an important thing for Figaro is that he has a little bit of distance between the nose and the bottom here, the bottom of the top lip. So you don't want to go all the way up to the nose. You want to have a little bit of space here. So I'm going to just start there. There we go. And bring it all the way up to about where the horizontal line is. And the desk that I'm working on here is a Disney animation desk, so it has a lot of mobility. You can rotate around. But even if you don't have one of these, you can just turn your page around. And I always sort of flip my drawing around while I'm working on it, because I want to make sure that I'm drawing from an angle that my hand is comfortable with. Flip it back on here. So on this desk, I would just rotate the whole thing. And what's nice about that is that you can stack papers here, and then they're all aligned with these pins. And so this is how animators work to flip the pages back and forth. So let's go ahead and kind of close off the mouth. I'm gonna open up his jaw by drawing a U, making the lowest part of that U right at the middle at the bottom of the circle. Kind of bring it right back up. You might recognize this music. This is all from the film, Pinocchio. I have a couple books too I want to show you today of some really pretty artwork from Pinocchio. And then one of them is a book that every animator should own, so I feel like that's a good one to look forward to. I did the tongue here, just like we normally do the tongue. It's the M's or the flapping birds. You draw the flock of birds this way. There's a few that have to be flapping, and that's what this guy is. And now we can do the bottom lip. So the bottom lip is a little bit bigger on the bottom than it is up towards the side, but it kind of outlines the whole way. So I'll show you what that looks like. It's like a droopier U. For now, I just want to give him some little mouth corners over here. And these are going to connect up to the nose. And that kind of closes off the muzzle. Okay, so now that we have this sort of built out, we can start thinking about the top of the shape of him. So when we drew Mickey and a few other characters, there's that kind of the mask shape that happens around the top. It goes here and then there and then back around. What we're gonna draw today is pretty similar to that, and the cheeks are a little bigger than Mickey's, so we're gonna look out for that difference. But I'm gonna start here at the middle line, just start pulling it up and then back around this way. And it's actually gonna stop above the cheeks here. And do the same thing on the other side. I'm gonna start over here. And what I did here is a little bit different than Mickey's, where I rounded out where the connection point is. Mickey is really sharp, but Figaro, you can get a little softer there. Slight variation on the design that we know. Okay, so now I want to give him those big cheeks. So starting from this side, I'm just going to draw a big rounded line that goes outside the circle. Same on the other side. And I want to connect them together underneath the chin. So that this little bottom lip that we drew, we want to leave a little bit of room underneath it, because Figaro's design is really kind of, it's got a lot of what I would call baby fat down here. It's kind of chubby and really cute, so we want to make sure that we keep that. And I'm just going to make sure that I remember to give him these little hairs. So just make some darker lines that go around. If you remember when we did Chip and Dale last week, we did the same kind of thing. Okay, so now we can do his ears. So the ears, I'm gonna start right about where this ends up on the side of the head over here. I'm just gonna do kind of a slightly bent line going out to the right. And then he's got a much deeper bend line that goes over here. It's a little bit similar to Pua's ears, if you remember when we drew him way back. Same on the other side. I want to make sure that the ears are about the same size, so I'm just making sure that they stop and end at the same places. And now to connect the ears, I'm going to kind of do a slightly flatter line. There's some shapes too that we're going to be adding here that's going to make him look officially like Figaro, but we're going to save those shapes for the end. So I'm gonna draw a little slightly squeezed in shape here, and that's gonna be the side of the ear. Same on the other side. He's also got these whiskers that stick out from his ear. 2 of them on either side, so I'm just gonna do 1, 2, 1, 2. And while we've got the whiskers going, we can do the 2 that are here, 2. Okay, so now it's time to start thinking about the eyeballs. So I'm gonna draw, just for myself, some really light diagonal lines that connect where the cheek flow would go, because this is all being pushed out by the smile. And he's got these great rounded eyes that sort of start here and then kind of go out wider on this side. So just do that really lightly. The YouTube compression kind of hides this stuff until I move out of the way, so you'll probably be able to see it better once I move my hand. So we want to do the same thing on the other side, and I'm just going to mark sort of where the height of the eyeball is, a really rough line. And then thinking about how wide this distance is, trying to keep it similar. And then right about there. Try to keep the eyes the same size, so I just have these really rough, light lines that no one will ever know about, and you probably didn't even see. But I think doing that is a great way to think of, just to leave little bookmarks for yourself to continue to be analyzing your drawing from both sides. So you can think about how the lines relate to each other. And then I'm just going to give him some little cheeky lines up top. His muzzle. It's a super cute character. And his eyeballs are these really long ovals, so we're just going to put them pretty close to the middle. Figaro is one of these characters too that if he ends up looking a little cross-eyed, that's okay. So some parts in the film he looks a little cross-eyed and it's really cute. So the shines that we normally do in eyeballs, if this is an eyeball, there's a little circle that happens here, and then we would color in the outside. For Figaro, he's got these great triangles instead, so we can just do little sharp lines there. If you remember in a couple weeks ago we did Oswald, and he had a similar kind of design. So what we'll color in is everything that is outside of that triangle. And then he's got these really simple eyebrows that are just rounded lines up here, halfway between the eye and the top of the mask. Okay, it's not quite Figaro yet because we haven't added his cheek fluff. So to do that, we're just going to kind of lightly outline triangle shape that goes out to the horizontal line that we made. And I'm trying to keep mine a little rounded too, so they're not straight triangle lines. They're kind of softer than that. And you can add these other little triangles here at the end, however you want to separate the shapes. It's up to you. Figure that out when we color it in for me. I might take a little bit of the cheeks out of here. See when I outline it. we have our underdrawing set up. Normally, remember for a lot of the boy characters, we can kind of outline the top of the eyeballs, and that gives him an indication of eyelashes without having to draw every little eyelash. Now I'd like to, at the end of this drawing, have Figaro colored in, and his eyeballs are yellow. The black pencil that I use kind of smudges when I use a light color next to it, so the first thing before I actually start outlining is I'm going to color in his eyeballs yellow. And that will just keep it from getting too muddy whenever I get to the black line. So it's good whenever you're working with your tools to kind of test it out, and this is a great space to test it out. That way you know you don't accidentally later on ruin your drawing. Because the yellow is such a light color, I'll show you what it does. This is black here. And then if I bring the yellow across it, I don't know if you can tell, but it just kind of makes all of it kind of really gross. It's kind of dragging some of the black out here, and it leaves it stranded. So remember, this is our work zone, so that's okay to kind of get messy over there. And I mentioned it before in a few videos, but if you're not great at coloring inside the lines and you want to get better at it, you did all these circles over here, so this is a great place to practice. Just to see if you can keep it consistent. So the animator who is most responsible for Figaro was this man by the name of Eric Larsen. And he's one of the original 9 Old Men, which are the animators that Walt most relied on to make his films. And Eric is one of the guys who, not a lot of people, he didn't really do a lot of publicity or anything outside of the studio, and so not a lot of people recognize his work. But if you hear from any of the modern Disney animators who got to work with the 9 Old Men, they love Eric Larsen because he's the one who started the training program, and he really focused on making sure that the lessons that they learned all the way from the 30s onward would get passed on to the future generation. And so Eric has like a soft spot for all of the modern artists. This is a book. This is like the main Disney book that I want to show. For anyone who wants to be an animator, this is the book that every animator should own. It's called The Illusion of Life, and it's done by 2 of the other 9 Old Men, Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnson. It's even got Pinocchio on the cover, but it's not just about Pinocchio, it's about the whole process of animation. And so every animator has a copy of this, I promise. And it goes through all of the lessons that they learned. And even inside that, it has this great scene that Eric Larsen did, kind of broken out, of Figaro tucking himself into bed. So these are really great books to have. You can get it on most used bookstores. I don't think they print new ones anymore, but mine's a used one. You can get a used one around. All right, so I'm gonna start outlining, and then I'll show you an even better version of that scene in a moment. So I am right-handed, which means I like to start on the left side of the drawing, and that way I don't smudge as I'm moving my hand across. So I'll just start over here. And a lot of this is just going to be colored in black too, so I'm just going to be a little bit looser with it than normal. This pencil's a little short. I'm going to try to get a longer one. This extender that makes short pencils long, just kind of clamps onto it. start coloring in the ear up here just because I know I'm gonna have to color it in eventually and I don't want to smudge while I do that. I have another trick that I use while I'm coloring things in that I'm sure I'll end up doing during this drawing. So for those of you that might be new to this, I am an animator. I'm working currently at Disney, and we are all working from home right now. So I thought during all of this social distancing, it would be nice to do something that is fun, that sort of takes our mind off of all the things that are happening in the news as we're waiting for more information. It's a good way to spend about an hour, and that way we can learn how to draw a character together, and then at the end of this we'll have a drawing of a character. And I think we're starting, I'm not sure which week of this it is, but it has been a while. So this is probably the beginning of week 7 or 8. Either way, I'm happy that you're here, and I hope you're looking forward to the Cats week, because we're gonna have a lot of fun Disney cats to draw. A lot of people have suggested enough of them over the previous classes that I thought it'd be fun to do a whole week of cats. Personally, I'm a dog person, but I did have 2 cats growing up. My cat's name was Noel, and my brother had a cat named Memo. We seem to name our cats after the holidays that we got them around. Noel we got around Christmas time, and Memo we got on Memorial Weekend. And they both lived to be over 20 years old, which is crazy. I think Noel lived to be 23, and Memo lived to be maybe 21. Cats are resilient. Figaro is this great character too, because he's a little rascal, but he's still very sweet. These are the best characters. He's a complicated guy, you know. I'm just sort of mixing in the process of outlining and coloring it in, just to do everything together. Hope you guys had fun last week when we drew Miko. If you haven't seen that one yet, you should go back and check it out, because I was able to call a friend halfway through, and that friend just happens to be one of the best singers on the planet. And she sang Colors of the Wind for us. And it's awesome. You should check that out. Miko. Miko's basically a cat. He's like a forest cat, right? With people hands. So all through this week, if you have a cat at home, it'd be great to see your drawing that you've done when you post it online, taken with your cat. Like to meet all the kitties out there. You see how once we start outlining in black, all of this red line goes away? It's a great way to just continue to work on the same drawing, and actually kind of like having all of these construction lines kept in the artwork, because it feels like it shows that I did my work to get there, and it's I don't think it's a bad thing to have it. I think some people want to erase them and clean up their work, but I don't mind it. And again, drawing should be fun, so we're not trying to do these perfect little drawings. We're just trying to learn how to draw really fun characters. This is where I'm going to start my new trick, which is I'm going to take a sheet of paper and just separate my hand from what I've already colored in, and that way I don't smudge it. Start working on these eyeballs. I don't know if you're like me, but I get pretty nervous when I start working on the eyes. Thicker up here. Sometimes I hold my breath. I don't realize I'm doing that. Remember, we want to just color in what's inside the shape here and leave that space open. Little cheek. So the nose I'm just going to color it in all the way black. I'm not going to leave any room for a highlight. It's just going to be a really dark nose. Knock my name tag out of the way. There we go. I'm looking at how dark I colored in the nose too. I might go back and make the eyes a little darker. So it's going to start with darker on this side over here. The eyes are usually, if you show your drawing to somebody, they're usually the first things that the viewer is going to look at. So that's why I've spent a little bit more time there, just to make those clean. The eyes are the window to the soul of your drawing. muzzle. It's funny, that was the first thing we drew, and now it's going to be the last thing that we outline. So even while I'm looking at this, I can see that maybe this side of the mouth is a little small. So I'm going to take a chance and go outside of my drawing here. That feels a little bit more balanced. I decided it was small because I was looking at this side over here. So in comparison, it felt like this lip was too far over to the left side. Yeah, let's color in the throat. I'm going to do that with just a gray, same pencil that I used for the outline in black, but just not pushing as hard. And as much as I can, I like coloring in the same direction. So I started coloring in this diagonal, and that has worked out pretty well. And I'm just gonna shade in a little bit darker on the sides. So my red that I used, I'm just going to do a little bit of work around the tongue area. And then now these ears, and that reminds me, we got to do the whiskers up here. So it's just kind of a pink color up here. I'm just going to use the same red that I had before. Let's go ahead and do those whiskers. In the actual film, they're white, but we can't really do white lines. And these guys. So before we color in the last part of him, I want to show you another good book. We've looked at artwork from this book before, but I thought it was cool because it actually is the same scene that we looked at, but a little bit more detail. So this is the 9 Old Men series, and then every one of the 9 Old Men has a little flip book. So this is what Eric Larsen looked like, and the scene that they chose for him was actually the same scene that was in The Illusion of Life, which is Figaro tucking himself into bed. So just to show you kind of an, it's hard to flip it here. I don't think we'll be able to see it as well, but you can just see the artwork as he was drawn. And there's all these little notes on the side, and yeah, so really charming work. You know? Yeah. Okay, flip it and see if you can see it, but pretty cool. So the last book I want to show before we finish coloring We talk a lot about animation and animators, but they're not the only people who make these movies. And there's a really cool book here called Layout and Background. It's part of a series from the Animation Research Library, the archive series. But there's these great background paintings from Pinocchio that I just wanted to show because they're gorgeous. Just love this work here. So much detail, all in the right spots. And you can see here the background leaves a little stage for action to take place here, so the characters would stop and perform in front of this zone. So it's kind of like, if you think about it, like theater and stage lighting. Speaking of which. So anyway, I thought it'd be cool to show that. A lot of great artwork out there. Okay, so Figaro's skin tone, sort of the fur that's closest to his eyes and muzzle, it's kind of a tan yellowish color. I don't have that color, I just have a brown, so I'm going to use a light brown to kind of color that in. Normally I might just leave it because I don't want to make it look incorrect. However, his muzzle is white and it's a little bit lighter than this, so I thought it'd just be good to lay down some color. So if I go really lightly with it, then it does the trick. I really wanted to color in his eyes yellow, and it would have looked weird if that was the only part colored in color, so that's why we're doing all these other ones. So even if you're not a cat person, there's still a lot of really good fundamentals that we can learn from how the artists at Disney through the years have treated the same animal, but with different designs. So kind of a cool challenge. None of the characters that we draw will look like another one. They're all pretty unique, which I think is impressive. So there might be some things here or there that are similar, like the Mickey mask here, but it's just applied differently per character. So it's a fun challenge to see how you might design the same animal in different ways. A lot of times that's what character designers, that's their job, is to look at a character that might be in the film and then do a lot of different options of how the character could be drawn in the final version. In fact, a lot of Pinocchio had begun before there was a redesign of all the characters, including Figaro. He had a more naturalistic, realistic version of himself, and they went back and gave it that kind of Disney charm. And that is the Figaro that you know today. Even Pinocchio was different. He had smaller eyes and all of his features were smaller, but he really got a cute pass. And I'm happy he did, all of them, because these designs are kind of timeless. A little bit of shading. He's got these little bumps, and I'm going to use the same brown right above the nose. I actually did this same idea with Jiminy Cricket, so I'm just going to add them here. 2 little bumps. Work out a couple shading things before we're done here. The cool thing, I think the lesson to learn from these character design changes that happen pretty late in the game is that even at a place like Disney, almost especially at a place like Disney and these major animation studios, just because it is done doesn't mean that it's right. And so they're constantly looking for ways to improve it. And that, I think, is a necessary skill for an animator, is to look for ways to ask, can this be better? What can I do to make this better? And is this still working? Even if it's done. So kind of have to have a lot of resilience as an animator and an artist. But if you're asking those questions, you're constantly improving and you're constantly learning. So those are good attributes to want to build upon. So if you have that, you might have what it takes. All right, I think we did it. So the last thing we should do is sign our names. I'm going to sign my name right down here. Cool. Well, this is going to be fun. I'm looking forward to Cats Week this week. So if you have any suggestions, throw them in the comments. Don't forget to share your drawing with the hashtag #DrawingWithWoodsy. You can also tag me in it if you post it into your stories on Instagram, and then that way you can share it to my stories, and then we can look at all the drawings at the end of the day. I hope you had a great weekend. I hope this helped you have a great start to the week, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Remember, just because we're separated doesn't mean we need to be alone, and I thank you for spending your Monday with me. All right, bye now.